Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, man, what's going on, dude?
Not too much. How are you?
Good, man. You doing
Pretty
all right?
tired. Yeah, tired. I drove back. I was driving back to Nashville last night from out of town, so got back late and yeah, but it's good. Looks like a nice day out and yeah, can't complain. You're in Mississippi, right?
Yeah,
Where in Mississippi?
I am in a small town called Wiggins. It's kind of right there by Biloxi, by the beach, stuff like that. So 45 minutes from there.
Cool. Well, it's nice you're near the beach. That's the only thing I hate about Nashville is, well, there's something, other things I don't like, but a lot I love. But the one thing I definitely don't like is how far we are from the beach. That's always like been so annoying. So I grew up not next to the beach, but a lot closer. So, um, but yeah. So,
So you're a beach guy? Because I'm not. Like I hate the beach. I can't stand it.
oh, really? That's funny. I mean, I think about this all the time because my family and I, like, we used to go to the beach in the summer, but sometimes we'd also go to like the lake, like a lake house kind of situation. I love, and I went to summer camp for years, and there was a lake, but it also wasn't far from the beach. It was in Massachusetts, so on like near the coast. I don't know. I go back. I love the beach. I don't know if I love it more than the lake. It's like they're different vibes, but I do love the beach, and I sometimes joke with myself like since I moved to Nashville, I've written like a lot of beach country songs. Weirdly, that's just like a lot of songs that I've been a part of, and I love a lot of them. My real last name is Siegel. It's pronounced like the bird, and it's just like, man, I should have just stuck with my real last name and just done all beach country songs. Been the next like Jake Owen or Kenny, because I love beach stuff and it's pretty easy and fun to sing and play. And so I guess I kind of am a beach guy in some ways, and I didn't even realize it. It's not like I didn't grow up, shirtless all summer, on a boat kind of situation like some other friends of mine who I feel like are much more actual beach bums and fished a lot. I love that stuff, but I wasn't quite like that. So I do love the beach though. It's just the overall vibe, something about being near the water. Why don't you like it?
Man, I don't know, man. It's hot. It's wet. You get sand everywhere. It's. I would much rather be inside where there's a lot of air conditioning. So
I get
I,
that. No, I don't.
I'm
I don't
not.
blame you.
I'm not the best at going out because I'm kind of hard to please.
No, I get that. Well, I also like seeing the girls in bikinis. So there's that's the easiest place to see that, unless you're. I guess there's pools and whatever, but yeah, no, that's kind of where that is. But thanks so much for having me on here, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. It's my pleasure having you on here. After we've been trying to do this for a long time, our schedules
Yeah, I know.
our schedules have just been crazy because I'm doing these. I don't know, 3, 4, sometimes 5 days a week, and I try to give myself 1 or 2 days off a week. Just trying to get my thoughts together. But I can't
Yeah,
imagine your schedule being a musician and you mentioned you were traveling. I was traveling as well yesterday doing business, and
yeah.
it's crazy trying to get people together. So I can't imagine
I know.
I can't imagine people getting like these big time celebrities. Like if my schedule is crazy, I can't imagine what like Dwayne Johnson's or Kevin Hart's schedule's like. It's probably like ridiculous.
Well, so it's funny. Like you would think that, and I think maybe that's true to a certain extent. But they also have like personal assistants and handlers and
Right.
stuff. But I actually also think, from what I understand of like famous songwriters and artists here in town that I look up to, I think actually it's not as crazy as you would think. When you're like at a certain level of fame up to, because I think you get to that way because you learn how to say no to things. Because I feel like
Right.
you start off and like when you're like ambitious and wanting to do stuff like you or I, like you wanting to say yes to everything, and that's definitely what happened when I first moved here. And I still say yes to a lot of stuff, but kind of being more precious of your time, because the more famous and successful you get, the more people are going to want to ask of you and want of your time. and that's just like a common theme I've heard a lot of people I look up to talk about and say is like learning how to say no and having a lot more free time. So I think there's always exceptions. I think there's definitely some folks that are like crazy and they have probably like maybe more business oriented famous people, but um I don't know. I think especially maybe with musicians and songwriters, a lot of the more famous ones have like very like open schedules because when they do, or it's at least balanced. Like they have like they're on tour or writing for like a specific period, and then they take like 3 months off. So, but they can afford to do that, because they're who they are. So, it's interesting. But yeah, I feel like I definitely feel the way you're feeling. It's rare that and especially since the pandemic and things started to open back up, it feels like everyone's kind of maybe catching up, trying to make up for lost time the last couple of years. So it just feels extra hectic, And I'm obviously the pandemic was a terrible thing, and no one wishes it to happen. But I'm not going to say I hated, you know, chilling for a little bit. For that first summer, it was cool, and then after, it's like, all right, let's let's get back to it. So, but
Do you
anyways.
have trouble, because I find myself having trouble not just professionally but personally saying no, like, because I feel if I say
Oh
no, it will make me look like the biggest douchebag, because it makes me, like, you know what I mean, like it won't, but there's just something inside where it's like I can't say no, because I don't want to disappoint people, and also, it's just I have that trouble saying no in all
no,
aspects.
I think I'm absolutely that same way. And like I said, like I've had to learn being here, starting to say no to things, but I definitely would say, I think a lot of friends and people that know me would say that I'm a people pleaser, even though like I don't like to think of myself that way. And I don't think I am in kind of like an obsequious way or like kind of like really like, those kind of ways. But I think that definitely it's hard because FOMO is just real, especially here in Nashville. There's just like something going on every night, every day, and but you just can't. Like when I first moved here, I think I was out every night for 3 or 4 months at something, and that's cool. And that's when you first move here and you're meeting people and whatever. But and I could still be doing that now if I wanted to. It's just not possible. You're going to burn yourself out physically, emotionally, psychologically. So as hard as it is to say no, sometimes you gotta. I'm starting to, but I definitely feel like my instinct is the same as yours, and I hate doing it. So there's just not enough hours in the day. I mean, I feel like there's like 10 TV shows I'm trying to catch up on that like
Yeah.
started and restarted. And I'm like, fuck, I gotta watch those, and then but then like my friend's playing a show or like I got this show. It's like there's so much content. 10 albums dropped from 10 different artists. So like there's just saying no is really important. And I've again circling back, a lot of people have said that I look up to, or like that have given talks or whatever. I feel like I've said the power of no, and the more you do it, the more successful you become, or like the most successful people know how to say no, which is sort of counterintuitive, but it's really interesting. So yeah, but yes, it is. I'm in the same boat as you. It's hard not to.
I don't. Here's how I feel about, because I also am like a people pleaser. I just find it easier to be a people pleaser because it'll get you in and out of the door as quickly as possible. It's like we were having some troubles with our neighbors, and I was like, just fuck it. Let them do whatever they want to do. I don't care. Leave them alone. Let
Mhm.
them do it, because it's like if you're going to argue, then it's going to turn it into a whole spill. And it's like it's just easier to just be a people pleaser, but it's also like it feels damn good when you stand your ground and you say no for the first time. It's like that sigh of relief.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing with the initial rush of like saying yes and like okay, like that person is happy. You do, I just you get it. You could get into a situation where you end up saying saying something with your mouth that you end up can't cash. You can't back it up. You know, whatever that phrase is, like your mind is saying things that your heart can't cash, or whatever the expression. If you like put too much on your plate, I mean, I was in that situation recently. You know, where I just like said I was gonna come to this thing and I wanted to, and but I got held up at this other thing. I kept saying I was gonna come because I wanted to go, but I didn't want to leave the other thing. And I couldn't, I should have just said, look, I'm not going to make it to that thing tonight. I'll have to be there next time I'm at this and I'm having a great time and it's just hard to leave. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with saying yes to things and being a people pleaser in that, in a certain sense, but as long as you're not spreading yourself too thin and then like having it backfire and just and may end up making more people angry than we would have by just saying no. So I definitely think that it's important to kind of find that balance for sure.
Yeah, I
Especially
had.
when
Go ahead.
oh, so I was especially with like someone like you or I, like we don't work regular 9 to 5 jobs as far as I can tell at least. So when we're making our own schedule and it's a lot easier to like feel like we have more time, but we have the same 24 hours as everyone else.
You know, what was that point in your life where you were kind of like, because I can share personally, you know, I had a lot of people that would say, okay, let's do the podcast. And like we would book it for a certain day. And then they would just like not show up on Zoom, or they would worry about, okay, we're booked for an hour, but I only have 30 minutes or whatever it may be. I finally had
Right,
to
right.
set my ground, and I finally had to be like, you know what? There's a new set of rules here on the podcast. New set of rules is if you don't show up on time or you're 10 to 15 minutes late without an hour warning, I'm going to charge you,
Yeah,
because it
yeah.
makes, and I was so afraid to do that, but I was just
Mm-hmm.
getting so burnout on people doing me wrong, or the fact
Mm-hmm.
that people would just want to come on the show for 20 minutes, promote their shit and get off. And it was,
Right.
but once I finally did that and I sent it to like, I have certain publishers that come to me to interview their artists. And
Yeah.
dude, I was scared to death when I first sent out the new rules. I was like, because they're not going to want anything to do with me. But you know, once I
Yeah.
sent it out, they were like, we understand, man. I was like, it made me look more professional. And, but it's
Well,
just
yeah,
that.
and
Go ahead.
you know your worth. And so I was just saying, you know your worth, and you're like, I like sometimes when there's less rules and boundaries, people it's confusing and people don't know what to do. If you set even a basic expectation, it makes a difference. You know, we're conditioned to follow rules or at least understand them, and so I think, yeah, no, I understand it can seem scary like that to like it's the same way with me. Like I you know, having to say no to certain opportunities because I'm already involved in other opportunities that I love that are great, but and I feel bad saying no to those ones, and I'm like, oh shit, they're never going to come around again. But then the people totally understand, and you know, we find a different way to make it happen, or it happens later. So it's yeah, I totally get that, but you got to do yeah, hey, you gotta do what's best for you and protect yourself and stuff that's valuable of your time. So it's especially hard when you're, you know, I guess I would say independent or a freelancer, whatever you want to call it, kind of like the things that we are. So um, yeah, no, I totally get that.
You mentioned that you were
So
trying to catch up on some TV shows. What kind of things are you watching nowadays that you're trying to catch up on?
well, the new season of Stranger Things obviously came out. I haven't watched it yet, but trying to watch that.
Never saw it. Never saw Stranger Things.
Oh my gosh, man. Yeah, wow. Yeah, I mean, I love it. I feel like it's always so long between seasons. I feel like I need to watch the prior
Right.
season,
Mhm.
but I think they'll probably do like a couple minute recap with the important highlights like they always do. So, I mean, I like that. I'm a big sci-fi and like, you know, like I guess comic book superhero, all that kind of stuff. I love that stuff. So, Star Wars, the new Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I've been catching up on that because I wasn't able to watch much about the last week or two, and trying to think what else. There's a bunch of movies I want. The new Top Gun I hear is like amazing.
I have
Um,
not. I have not gotten to watch that yet. And I'm like, because my parents, they're the ones, you know, they showed me a bunch of the 80s movies, and it became my favorite year of movies. And they're
Oh
like,
yeah.
we want to go watch Top Gun, the new one. And I was like, you know what? I will wait and I will go with you guys because you showed me the original. Let's go together and
Mhm.
watch Top Gun. And we just haven't had a chance yet. But I'm hearing it's like the most amazing movie of all time. Like I'm hearing it's
I know it's like it's ridiculous. Like people are literally saying it's like not just better than the original. It's like one of the best movies ever. I'm like, how can that be? But
and but then
I mean,
also I don't want to go into it with such high expectations of this is going to be the greatest movie
no.
and then it just be average. You know what I mean? So like I kind of have no opinion going into it because Top Gun's not my favorite, but I enjoy it.
I always loved the original Top Gun. I rewatched it the other day, like knowing, hoping
Me
to
too.
have the time to see it this week. But then my schedule got crazy, so I probably won't be able to see it till Sunday. But I mean, I like it, and so we'll see what happens. But that's just crazy. I feel, and especially for like a long awaited or a long later sequel kind of thing. You know, it's amazing. I mean, Tom Cruise looks like he hasn't really aged, which is crazy. Uh,
It's that Scientology coming
uh,
through.
right, it's the science of Scientology. But and I'm sure you know special effects. I heard my dad was telling me stuff about the movie. Like he apparently is like a licensed pilot. He's always kind of done his own stunts, but
Yeah.
they wanted in the movie they were trying to get him to actually like fly the real plane and like the F-18s, and the government was like kind of that's kind of where they set the line. Like, nah, we can't have Tom Cruise, even if he's Tom Cruise, he's still a civilian. You know, fly a $70 million plane because you know something goes wrong, and it's you know,
Tom Cruise is such a badass because in the new like Mission Impossible, he's like hanging
mhm.
onto the side of a plane, and that's like he's actually doing that like 20,000 feet in the air. And I'm like,
Yeah,
there's no way I'm doing that.
he's ridiculous. He's always been. I love Mission Impossible stuff too. He kind of he's like kind of like Jackie Chan in that sense. Like they feel like similar kinds of actors, very physical, also do their own stunts. But yeah, no, it was badass. And so, no, but so I heard that, and then I also heard so there was a lot. It was a very like real filmed movie. Like there wasn't a ton of CGI when they're up in the air and stuff.
Mhm.
Like they were in the actual planes. They just had a real pilot in front of them, piloting like a
Gotcha.
military guy, and they put cameras all around their seat in the second in the second seat behind, and then CGI'd the back of the plane to look like the front of the plane, so that it looked like they were flying it. But they were actually in the air. The G forces and everything were real. Like it was very. They tried to keep it as real as possible. So,
That's like
um,
Keanu Reeves when he does the John Wick movies. Like he goes into like strict Navy SEAL training, and it's like
that's great.
it's crazy. It's like you're going all that out for a movie, but then it's like, but look at the movie you got in return for them going the extra mile.
Oh yeah, it shows, man. I mean, it's the same thing with in music. Like there's a lot of technology that nowadays that you know you can CGI stuff or fake stuff and like similar equivalents in music, but it always comes across more when you do the real thing and you put in the actual work. Like it always, I think, makes a lasting impact. Or there's a difference between real instruments and you know in digital instruments, depending on the thing. But yeah, I think it shows, and that's why these guys are legends because they put in that work and it's very inspirational. I'm glad that I don't have to do my own stunts in music though, because I think I don't know how I would fare. I wouldn't be afraid to, but I don't know how. Sometimes I'm coordinated, sometimes I'm not. So
Right.
I just think too much. So, but yeah, no, really, definitely want to see that. So there's probably a few other things I can't think of off the top of my head, but there's
But
just so much to see.
what's a
So
certain TV show or a certain movie that you watched and you're like, wow, that's me?
me, that's me. In what sense?
Like, okay, I'll give you an example. Like, I am one of the biggest fans of Breaking Bad, right? I consider that to be one of the greatest shows to ever be created. Well, then
Yeah, most people do.
Well, then they created Better Call Saul based on the lawyer in Breaking
Yeah,
Bad. I was not going to
yeah.
watch it, but then
Mhm.
people are saying this is amazing. So I started to watch it. and I believe this to be better than Breaking Bad. Unbelievable.
Well,
But his story of not the criminal part, but his story of people don't want him to succeed, and he's trying so hard. He's trying to open up a business, but people keep shutting him down. He has people that just, when he's down on his luck, struggling. And
yeah,
I seen that in myself. I was like, wow, that's kind of like me to a certain extent, and to a lot of people.
yeah. Hmm. I have to think about that. Um, yeah, I don't. I mean, I think we always, have our idealized characters that we wish we were like a Tom Cruise in the movies, and maybe not
Yeah.
in real life because of the Scientology thing. But um, yeah, I have to think about that. Off the top of my head,
Well, if you
damn, it's
just
like
think about it, if you just think about it, throw it on our chat, you can just throw that out there. You ain't got to think
yeah.
right now.
Sometimes questions like that catch you off guard, and I'm like, shit. I like feel like the second we hang up, like I'll have the answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll marinate on it. I'll marinate on it. I mean, I know, like, I don't know. I was kind of yeah. I'll have to keep thinking about it. I was like,
So
nah, that's yeah.
I kind of want to go back into a little bit of your backstory for a little bit. So
Sure.
you were born in LA, but then you were
Hmm.
raised in Philadelphia, right?
Yes. Moved to Philly when I was about 5. I just learned recently that there's a Philadelphia, Mississippi, as well as there in
Yeah, man.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, man.
So,
That's where good old Hardy's from. He's from up there in
yeah. Oh,
Philadelphia.
and I know that as well. I have a dream. If he listens to this podcast, my dream is he's one of my favorite writers and artists in town. I'd love to get in a room with him someday and write a song called Philadelphia. About his Philadelphia versus my Philadelphia,
That'd be
kind
kind
of
of cool.
bridging. Yeah, I don't know how it would shake out, but that'd be cool. I
You
mean,
know,
there's a lot of other
it's
songs I love to write, but
I have so your dream is to have Hardy. My dream is to have all like people from Mississippi that are like so like successful and famous now to be on the podcast. I mean, hey, I do have the biggest podcast in the state, so I mean, I don't think that would be too hard. But I'd be like
no,
getting,
it doesn't seem.
they'd be getting like Morgan Freeman, like intimidating people that'd be scared to death to interview because it's like
Is Morgan? I didn't know Morgan's from Mississippi. I didn't
Morgan
know that.
Freeman was born here, yeah.
Hell yeah. I know, and Faith Hill, I know, is from
They
Mississippi
tell
too.
she's from Star, which is it's a couple hours away from where I'm at. A good maybe hour 45 on a good day.
Um, Johnny Cash grew up in Mississippi, but obviously he's not alive. So, or
No,
no, he was
he
Arkansas.
was
Sorry,
Arkansas. Elvis Presley was born here in
Elvis
Tupelo.
Presley, Tupelo, obviously. I know I have a couple friends who are from Tupelo here, some other artists, and um, Trent. What's his name? I can't remember. He won American Idol a few years back.
Trent Tomlinson?
Uh, no, not Trent Thompson. I
Okay.
love Trent Thompson. Is
I
he
think
from
he's
Mississippi too?
I think so. I think so.
There's another. It's a much younger Trent. He's like blonde, short hair. He won American Idol. Like
Oh, okay. I'm not sure.
I have to remember his last name. He had a song on the radio called "There's a Girl." Let me walk it up. We'll look it up real quick.
I don't know.
Hmm.
But while
There's a girl.
but while you're looking that up, I got a
Yeah,
question
Trent
for you
Harmon. Trent Harmon. Sorry.
about growing up in
Um,
Philly. Trent Harmon. That's it. That's it. Yeah. Okay.
yes.
I know you. Okay. I know you're talking about. So, but growing up in Philly, is country music big over there? I mean, I would imagine not because I figured it'd be like a big hip hop scene.
So I mean, I grew up listening to a lot of classic rock and hip hop.
Okay.
More so classic rock, like big into like Van Halen and Springsteen and Queen and John Mayer. Not classic rock, but like current rock of the day, blues and stuff like that. Funnily enough, I didn't realize this until I was older, though. But the radio station in Philly is XTU is like one of the biggest in the country. The market in Philly is actually pretty huge because it services the whole surrounding area, of which there's definitely like a high concentration of country fans in Jersey and Delaware and Virginia and Maryland, like parts of, and
Mhm.
certainly like once you get outside of Philly and Pennsylvania, it can be pretty country for sure. But my exposure to country, I listened to some growing up, kind of like coincidentally. I remember seeing Walk the Line when I was younger with my dad, and he liked Johnny Cash a lot, so I listened to a lot of Johnny Cash, and that movie always made an impression on me. My mom loved she loved Shania Twain, and there's a funny kind of overlap with Shania Twain and classic rock because her ex-husband Mutt
Right.
Lange, who
Right.
wrote and produced all her songs with her, he was also one of the biggest rock producers ever, like AC/DC, Back in Black, Def Leppard, except like iconic.
Crazy.
It's ridiculous,
Crazily iconic.
crazy iconic. And then wrote and produced all the amazing songs with Shania too. So love Shania, always love Shania, and listen to a little bit of Faith Hill and Leanne Rimes and Gretchen Wilson too from with my mom. So a lot of like the '90s and early 2000s like kind of women of country, which I think is such a classic and amazing era in country music. And but I didn't really like get into it until college. I went to college down in North Carolina, and just kind of just being there, and that was what a lot of people were playing all the time, and I just got a lot more exposed to it, and had friends that liked it, and like, oh, you got to check this out and listen to this guy or that, and so I had direction that I didn't have before. So that's kind of where it came from. It's funny, Hardy was on a podcast, the and the writer is podcast,
Right.
and he was and he said it blew my mind, and it like I mean he's from Mississippi, he's from the country, he's
Uh-huh.
he's still raised that way, but he apparently didn't really start listening to country music until he was 18. He was more into rock and metal like I was.
Right.
Like
Right. See, I'm kind of I'm a little bit different because when I was growing up, my mom and dad, all I was allowed to listen to was country music because
that's great.
everything else was considered to my mom devil music. Like, I mean, there was no way I was going to listen to Gene Simmons and Kiss. There was no way I was going to listen to
Oh,
any of that because just because their artistic portrayal of the devil, she always thought
mhm.
that they were devil worshippers. Like it was crazy. But
Well, I
so
mean,
I
it was definitely an image they put on. There was a bunch of Jewish guys from New York.
right,
Just
right. But I started listening to classic rock maybe around, I don't know, seventh, eighth grade, I would say. And
yeah.
then it kind of just took my mind to a whirlwind. And that's kind of, I listen to country as well, but mostly it's classic rock, and that's my favorite genre of all time, I think.
I mean, I love classic rock. That's what made me who I am in a lot of ways. I think and that's so country music. What drew me in was like the songwriting and the lyrics and stuff like that. But sonically, what country music is today is more like classic rock. I mean, there's
Right.
like obviously like there's hip hop and pop elements, but the generation that we're a part of that is making music in Nashville now grew up with classic rock just as much as and like John Mayer and hip hop stuff as they did with country music. So it's all those kind of influences being molded together, and you're hearing in so many different ways. I think country in a lot of ways is what rock used to be or has been for a long time. It's this kind of overarching genre that has a lot of different subgenres that are being played around with. I mean, it has the classic and the traditional stuff that'll always be there, and the traditionalists that stick to that stuff. But just like country had like or rock like had blues rock and progressive rock and jazz rock and all these different like hybrid things where people would explore and create new and crazy sounds, or punk rock. Like I feel like country is sort of having that experience with all the different vibes, because you can have something from the same radio station playing a George Strait song to playing like a Sam Hunt song, or some other guy who's super poppy. And I think that's great. It's a testament to country's vitality and how so many different people can relate to it and feel that they can use that genre to express themselves in a way that's authentic and relevant to them. Because I met Ryan Hurd one time, and he was talking about how, I mean, he's from Michigan. He's not a country boy either, but it's just what drew him to country music is what drew me to country music is the authenticity and the storytelling. Because I grew up playing guitar and singing from a young age, but I didn't really honestly start songwriting until later because as much as I loved the classic rock songs and all that, I didn't really know like how to write a song like that. Like I could like maybe make I can make guitar parts and like, but lyrically, and I maybe it's because I was young and didn't like have a life experience, but I just didn't know what to do. And for whatever reason, when I got to college, like it all kind of came into focus and like, oh, you can just write about your life and even be like whatever you want. It just made something clicked. It just made sense. And I was a philosophy major in college too, and um, I think country music. I love some of my favorite country songs are the ones that are like the life songs or that kind of deal with like bigger issues and kind of have some depth to them. And so I always thought um, that's sort of what drew me to want to be a songwriter
Yeah.
is to write songs like those. Like I love a good up tempo and a party song like everyone else, but the songs that like the legacy songs, the songs that like make you stop and like totally change your view on something, and that's something that country music does really well, and that's kind of what drew me to it. And sonically, when I was in college, the bands that were coming up, the Jake Owens and the Florida Georgia Lines and the Eric Churches, it was a lot more. There was a lot more of a rock sound that like, oh, I get this. I'd love to make songs like this and feel like I can credibly sing, you know, my kind of thing with that sort of sound, and that would work. So yeah, long story short,
No, no, it's
I
good, man.
basically kind of got drawn to it a little later, but yeah, I love country music. I love so many genres. To me, like especially in this day and age, with streaming and everything, genre is becoming less and less
Mm,
strict, and
mm.
it shouldn't be. Like I get having fidelity to certain things, but it's mostly genre was created for like marketing and label and radio purposes. But I think the best guys and artists, guys or girls, whoever they are, really kind of take all their influences and just make it them, you know. So
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying.
I enjoy the evolvement of music in general, but I also love the artists that can admit that evolve needs to happen. Like I was chatting with my buddy Jeff Bates a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about how he he is more of a traditionalist country artist, but then he writes
Mhm.
music for today's age. Like he wrote a like kind of like a classic rock hit for Blake Shelton, and he's like, "That's not my type of music, but I can appreciate it."
Mhm. I feel that. I think any writer or artist in town, like if you're an artist that also writes for other artists,
Mm,
it's about wearing different hats. Or if you're just a writer in general, it's like you have your songs that you prefer, or like I know what my style kind of is, and like I'm obviously again from Philadelphia. Like I'm not going to say I was born and raised on a farm and I'm so country and this and that, but it's fun to write those songs with the guys that are for them. I've learned a lot writing those kind of songs
mm.
with a lot more country people than me. So I think you can. I think a true artist and someone who's a creative and like can appreciate a lot of different things that isn't aren't always like their thing, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So I certainly have. There's a difference. I'm always trying to write a song that I would write or that I would also record or sing or play. But sometimes obviously if I'm in a room that day and it's very specific to that artist and they have a very different life experience or brand or approach, you obviously write for them. But I can totally appreciate. I'm kind of I guess maybe more the opposite. Like I love the traditional stuff and totally appreciate it. I lean a little bit more modern and pop and kind of rock stuff and so yeah, it's I totally agree with him completely.
So you went to college in North Carolina, you said, but then you
Mhm.
moved to Nashville in 2018. Was there ever a thought about quitting college and then just chasing the music scene full head on?
See, I started off as a music major in college. I went to run track first. I didn't go to like a Belmont or a Berkeley or one of those specific. I went to Wake Forest and I loved it. It was a great time, but I didn't really I didn't think about the actual specific music schools too much, and I probably should have. But So I was taking some music classes, but it was like more classical and like music theory. It wasn't really, I'm not gonna say it wasn't irrelevant because of course music is music, but I wasn't like learning how to songwrite and stuff like that. So I don't know. I guess like I've been wanting to do music since I was really young, but I kind of always thought that even if I was going to do music, I was going to finish college at least. I hadn't really thought about just cutting and running because first of all, I think my parents wouldn't have been happy, but if I didn't have a plan and just doing that. But in hindsight, I mean, I think college was useful in a lot of ways, and definitely like for the draw from a lot of experiences and memories for songs. But um, I don't know, it might have not been a necessary thing in depending on how you slice it. But it would have been nice, definitely, to like be at a school in Nashville maybe and like kind of be in town sooner and kind of make my way around it and make connections. But at the same time, maybe if I had cut and run and moved here, I might have not been ready. I might have been too young, like and I would have not handled rejection the way that I handle it now, and I probably would have like just packed it up and gone home. So I never really had a specific thought, no, but I knew I always wanted to do music. It was just kind of figuring out the when and the how. So I graduated, worked for a couple years back home, tried to figure out how to get down here, and I got down here. So I mean, I always wish I got here sooner, but it happens when it's supposed to happen, they say. And um, yeah, so
When you were like, let's just 8, 9, what did you want to do with your life?
um, I started music probably around 9 or 10
Okay.
because I had some other friends. I mean, I've been singing like my whole life, like in the shower, and like I always loved singing, and um, I started playing guitar around 10, I think, 10 or 11. I had a number of friends that none of whom play guitar anymore, funnily enough, but they were all like playing, like taking lessons. And my dad always had a guitar in the office that I never really touched. He was like kind of self-taught, wrote some songs when he was a lot younger, and but never really pursued anything. But I just saw and that was an acoustic guitar, and I thought that was cool. But my buddy like got like the Stratocaster starter pack when we were like 11, and I saw that at his house, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And he was like the friend that was showing me these rock artists that I never heard before, like Jimmy and Hendrix and AC/DC. So that was kind of like what I was like, man, I'd love to do that. Before then, I don't really know. I mean, I wanted to be Superman, and
Right.
I wanted to be. I think there was one point, like randomly, I wanted to be a marine biologist. I don't know why,
Like
but like
everybody
my
else.
yeah, yeah, like that was the thing I wanted to do, and it still sounds super awesome, but I'm also not really good at science. So, but it kind of goes with the beach thing, with the kind of get circling back to where we started talking. But yeah, no, music's kind of been there for a long time. There's a lot of things I love and am interested in, and um, seem cool, but like there's in terms of what do I want to do day to day for the rest of my life, and what do I enjoy doing the most, like music's kind of been that thing for as long as I can remember. So I ran track pretty seriously in high school and part of college. um, and like I had a goal of maybe like running professionally for a little bit first and then doing music, but that just didn't pan out, so for a number of reasons. But um, you know, it's yeah. So it's we're here though. We're doing it. So
So you move. Let's go forward. You moved to Nashville, right? So when you moved to
yep.
Nashville, kind of what's the artist's first thought of? Okay, I need to figure out how to make money. What's your next step?
Yeah, it's figuring out how to make money, for sure, and place to stay, live. I had a friend from college whose mom works here. Worked for her for a little bit, then kind of like in the office because I had office experience and a desk job, for a couple of years. Sort of realized that was kind of hard to balance with the music life. There are some friends of mine who do it. I don't really know how, but they like maintain a 9 to 5 job and are still, you know, put like making their way through the industry and writing and going out to things. And but that was just, I don't know, that was difficult for me. So then started working at, a couple different bars and restaurants. I was trying to figure out how to play shows for money. Obviously, started doing some like cover gigs, just off and on, around town, and then just writing a ton, uh, just as much as I could with anybody who would want to write with me when I first got. This goes back to the saying yes thing, say yes to everyone and everything, because I think you should back then, and that's how you like meet your people. And when I was starting out, I'm very glad I did. Um, but yeah, a lot of a lot of different odd jobs too. Kind of just whatever you can do to get by. But once I had that, a place and some sort of semi regular job, it was just like trying to fill up my schedule with writing sessions um and shows as much as I could. And like I said, being out every night. If I wasn't playing a show, I was still at a show, meeting people, and um yeah, I still try and balance that, and go out as much as I can. But uh, like I said, you also got to take care of yourself, and as personal time. And but yes, that was kind of. Did that answer the question?
No, you're
Sort of.
good. You're good.
Sometimes I get on a train and I know I'm in the area of of where we started, but I'm like, did I actually succinct wrap it up? So,
Right.
but
Do you have like because obviously we're in the business of owning our own business. I mean, that's what musicians do.
right.
That's what I'm doing. We own our own business. So do you have a business bone in your body kind of, or did you have to figure it out on your own by failure?
Um, I think a bit of both. I think the music business is a business. Sure, I think it's kind of unlike any other business. As you know, just the particulars of it. My dad's a businessman and a hardworking guy, and he's always been inspirational. And he's all and thankfully always been supportive of my dream. But something that I kind of learned from him was to, hey, you can have a dream and know that you can't have everything planned out, but at least have a couple steps. Don't just go in flying blind. Like, okay, you're going to move to Nashville, sure, because you want to become a successful, country artist and songwriter. That doesn't happen overnight. There's no one path to do that, but start somewhere. Have a plan to get there, and okay. So what do you got to do? You got to write songs. It taught me to think, structurally. And so, okay, here's all the things I want to do. Here's how I can make them happen. So I think I have an organizational kind of mind as it relates to business. I can't say that I'm the best with, investments and money, or like that stuff is just not my wheelhouse. Like, I mean, I'm good with like personal finances, money, but um, the business, like negotiations and just marketing, and so like that's just not my strength. And I don't think that's any like true creative strength. I mean, there's certain things that we're good at, and know, like related to like, because some of the content stuff in TikTok and social media is like is creative and related to your music. Obviously, a lot of it's not, but there's definitely some on that side of the business that's fun and cool. But so I think I definitely have a familiarity with kind of business mindsets and thinking, and sort of the organizational, strategic kind of approach to things. I think that definitely is, again, maybe what goes back to like why I probably didn't just leave college right away, because it's like, well, no, it's still good to have a college degree, because learning is fun and always helps. And I think my philosophy degree, I was also a Spanish major, I was a double major. I think both of those degrees really have helped me as a songwriter and musician here in town, because just the way I think about songs and ideas and stuff like that is, abstractly very, kind of related to the way my brain was trained to think with philosophy. And then Spanish is becoming such a big part of bilingual music and pop music, and even in country is starting to happen. There's a lot of like kind of Latin artists that are coming up, and I love Spanish. I love the culture. I love music and all that stuff. And I've written a few songs with Spanish lyrics, but then hopefully we'll do more. So again, long answer to your question. I think I have some business attributes, and I think because again, yeah, you're right. A musician is a startup, so it's about how to effectively market yourself and figure out your brand. I think that's the biggest thing. Like as a songwriter and an artist, it's knowing who you are and more importantly who you're not, and how to present that. And I think I've come a long way certainly with that since I moved here, and have a much better handle on it. But um, yeah, so I like to think I have the right tools as a creative and the right understanding of certain business things. So that's I think so.
Yeah. For me, marketing is the absolute toughest thing in business to do. I can't figure it out quite how it needs to be done to be a projected success. I find marketing to be so hard. Um, but also, you're right. What's your brand? If you don't really know what your brand is, you don't really have a business. You have an idea, you know, until you know your brand, what it is, what you are going for, where you want to be, then you just have an idea that or a hobby that hasn't really turned anything.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the difference between I think a hobby and a business is like being able to market and brand it and sell it for lack of a better term, which is I don't know. I feel like you host a podcast, you're somewhat extroverted. I'm a musician and I perform. I'm somewhat extroverted, but I think on a certain level, creatives are also are kind of introverted. So it's sort of hard to figure that piece out. If that makes sense. Like I don't love like self promotion. That's like not my forte.
It's
But
hard to do
at,
because it's hard to do self promotion because you don't want to feel like you brag every chance that you get. It's the
right,
hardest thing. It is so hard.
and what I found in this town, especially, is the people that talk the most about themselves and say that they have the most going on, usually have the least going on,
Right.
and are just seeing because the people that are really successful, they just let their success speak. They don't have to say anything or be. They're like really nice and humble, or like because they don't have any reason to feel the need to say,
Mm.
"Oh yeah, I'm working with this person, doing this, like, and this record's about to come out, and we're like, it's going to be really big, and this and that." Like, no, you're not hearing a famous, successful artist or whatever bragging that way. It's like, man, I'm just excited to put out this record, or yeah, working on some songs. They're always kind of like chill about it. So I think self promotion, it's finding that balance that's like confidence but not arrogance, and but
You know,
that's still it's really hard.
here's a crazy thing that I found that worked for me. I got this from actually one of my good friends. I went to a local fair. It was a big get together for the town. And I went and
Uh-huh.
got dollar bills. And I literally wrote my Instagram and my podcast feed on that dollar bill. So whenever
Wow.
I handed out a dollar bill or I was just giving tips, they would flip the dollar bill over and see the Instagram and the podcast, like the podcast feed. And I found that that worked somewhat because it's like you're giving money for people to find you,
Right.
which is like,
Right.
but it's also self promotion without you having to brag and say, oh, I've had
Right.
this, you know?
It's finding the ways to do it that seem natural and not forced, which I think can be different for everyone. And I think I'm still finding what those things are for me, especially as it relates to social media. I mean, there's obviously this industry has been turned upside down with TikTok, and I have a lot of friends that have a lot of success and have changed their lives and their careers and through TikTok. And I've written some songs that have blown up, and it's really cool to be a part of that. But um, now, especially, it just feels like there's such a saturation of artists. I think it was different early on in the pandemic when kind of TikTok was newer, and that's sort of all we had in terms of entertainment. There was nothing else. We couldn't go anywhere, do anything. But I think it's still an important part. It's a part of the toolkit now, and just learning how to effectively find your niche and kind of cut through the noise. As with any of the other platforms or anything, I think just some people are a little bit more natural at doing that, or fearless, for lack of a better word. They don't care what people
Mhm.
think, and maybe I care a little bit too much, and or just like I see myself, I'm like, ah, cringe. Like I don't want to do that. But it's funny. I watched Taylor Swift gave a commencement speech for New York University this year,
Right.
um, and it was pretty cool actually. There were some nuggets in there, and one of the things she said was, cringe is unavoidable in life. Like someone like me, like especially whose life is in the tabloids, like I'm always going to be looking back and seeing certain things that I did or said or wore, whether it was like professionally or personally, and I'm like, ugh, why did I do that? And I feel like you just kind of gotta live and you learn, and you move on, and you keep growing from it, and find the things that don't make you cringe, that best represent you, and how to present yourself. So it's all a process. We're all on a journey, but yeah.
So kind of as we wind down here, man, we've been going about an hour. Um, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and we got on the topic of talking about Elvis because that just happens to be both of our favorite artists of all time. And
Oh, love Elvis.
I rem we were FaceTiming last night, and I was like, we were chatting about Elvis, and I said, I wonder how much that guy brought in from merchandising, like just at a concert. Forget he died, and they're bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars. They were saying
Mhm.
every night that he performed, he was bringing in between $3 and $6 million just on the merchandise sales alone
Seriously?
a
I
night.
mean,
And I mean, people were having, I got into this long thing. They were having to bring 2 or 3 18 wheelers just from merchandise to come at the show because they were selling out every single
I
night.
mean, was this at like his Vegas? Or how big were these
I'm not,
venues? These were all,
I'm assuming it has to be a giant venue, right? He can't come to a small
yeah,
coliseum and make $3 million. It has to be, Las
just merch.
Vegas,
Yeah.
right? It has to be somewhere giant. But I brought this in to say this. Could you imagine when you see, Elvis? He was just an artist back then. You didn't know he was going to be what he is today, looked upon as one of the greatest of all time. And you
Yeah.
just buying a shirt, you're going to see him in concert. That leads me to
Mhm.
say, have you seen someone, in concert and they just like literally blew up and they're like the biggest thing in the world?
Hmm. Like before they were kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Like I saw Thomas Rhett opening up. I can't even remember who he opened up for, but it was right after he put out that "It Goes Like This" or "Beer with" one of his very first songs he put out. And I remember not a lot of people knew what to do because it was the Thomas Rhett sound. It was his own sound. And I remember
Right.
sitting in the venue and nobody knowing what to do. They're like, what are we doing? I don't understand what's happening. And then
Yeah, yeah,
and the
yeah.
next thing you know, his album comes out and he's just like, now look at him. He's like A plus, country star.
Yeah. Um, hmm. I think there's a couple stories with that. I saw Brett Eldridge came to my college. Well,
Oh wow.
two actually, two. Fun. My first semester of college, Josh Thompson, who's a
Right.
huge songwriter in Nashville, but he was an artist at the time, and that was one of the first records that got me like into country music. He came and played, and obviously, like he's still not like a household name famous wise, and he writes a lot with Thomas Rhett, but um, that was someone who like I didn't know, and then I didn't even realize like when I till years later, like, oh my God, he's written all these like, and it was that guy, and I love that first record, and so that was pretty cool. Junior year of college, Brett Eldridge came to my school, and apparently, I don't remember this, but apparently Russell Dickerson opened for him,
Okay.
um, and Brett had just put out his first record, which I love, and I
Really
love all
good.
of Brett's stuff.
Bring it back.
I think, yeah, bring it back. I think he's one of the most underrated artists in country music. He's just so good.
His
His tone, his
his voice. Let me
delivery.
tell you something. I don't listen to a lot of Christmas music when it's Christmas, but when
Right.
you put on Brett Eldredge's Christmas, dude, that guy has a voice on him that is like angelic. I don't know what it is, but that guy will
Yeah,
serenade you, and it's crazy, man.
he's a country. He's the country Sinatra, like I've been saying. He's a
Yes,
country crooner,
yes.
like or Michael Bublé. Like he's that. He's so yeah. I agree. I don't really particularly care for Christmas music either, but And I haven't heard his records that much, but I'm sure that I would like them for the Christmas ones. But yeah, I love his stuff. And then he got a lot bigger. Obviously, he was pretty new back then. The craziest story though is one that like I wasn't even there for, and I'm so upset. Like kind of more in line with your Thomas Rhett one. I studied abroad my junior year of college in the spring semester, and apparently when I was gone that spring semester, a guy named Sam Hunt came, and
Wow.
it was spring of 2014. He only had like just put out the mixtape, the acoustic mixtape. His record wasn't out, but like man, and people told me like, and I'm like, oh cool, I didn't miss anything. Like I was like, I hadn't heard of that guy. So, but he's like literally one of my favorites as a writer, as an artist, like to this day. And I like can't believe I missed that. Like I wouldn't have known obviously, but it's just like, damn, that guy, you
I
want to talk about someone who like, people didn't know what to do with, and that changed the game, you know? So
I saw Sam Hunt. Man, I think he had a couple songs that he come to a local festival we have here every year. That guy could put on a show, man. Sam Hunt is, I mean, he was tearing the house down. I mean, he closed the show with like house party, and it was literally a party. I mean, they were throwing confetti
yeah,
down. It was amazing what Sam Hunt could do.
yeah, he's incredible, man. I feel like, and I've heard so many stories about him. He has such a high standard. Like he's almost like a pain to write with. I hear because some of his songs take like 5 writing sessions, like over 6 months to finish. Like he's just so particular and very much like a,
But
you
but look
know.
what that's done for him though, being so
Oh, totally.
particular. You know
It's
what I mean?
amazing.
Like I
No,
would sit
it's
I would sit through 12 writing sessions for 12 months, just to have a writing credit on Sam Hunt's song because they're just so
oh,
particular how they go.
absolutely. Oh, and I've learned a lot from that, and just in general because a lot of times it's like there's pressure in Nashville to like finish the song in one session or like write quickly and get it out. And there's some guys that do that really well, and like sometimes songs just fall out. And I think even when they do, it's good to like take a second look at them like with some fresh eyes, maybe like the next day, fresh ears. But you know, there's definitely also something to really working on an idea and making sure it's the best that it can be. And finding that balance. So I admire that, and he doesn't compromise, especially when it comes to his stuff. So I no, I mean that's definitely a kick myself. Like holy shit, I might have even like had the chance to meet him back then because I like briefly met Brett, like because
Yeah,
he was just so new. I don't know, maybe not, but I just tell myself it would have been so cool. It would have been so man to see Sam that early. It was like early 2014. So but you know, there is maybe hopefully someday someone will say that about me. That oh man, I had a chance to see him, and now look at him. So
that's the dream
um,
though, isn't it? Like that's the dream
that's
to you know what I mean? Like it's the dream to say, for those that said I'd fail, up yours,
yeah,
because here I am.
yeah. I don't even want to say that to those people. I just want it to speak for itself, because then it'll be undeniable. They can't
Right,
say like
right.
I'll just be there, and they'll be like, oh shit, he's doing it. He's doing it. He's successful. So, and I know success is a broad term and defined by many different things. But I think when someone you have no connection to or any idea on the other side of the country hears your stuff or is a fan of your stuff or like would come to pay to see you, that's a measure of success. So that I would be cool with. So
Yeah, man.
um, yeah.
You've got
So
a
hopefully someday.
you've got a lot of guitar stuff in the background I'm seeing. What are the coolest memorabilia things you have?
Uh, hmm. Actually, it's all the way. It's back in the other room and in the case. It's kind of going to get out, but I got a guitar for my bar mitzvah when I was 13 from a family friend. It was signed by Journey, the band. Like,
Cool. Yeah, that's
don't
crazy.
yeah. So it's and I played when I was younger. I was an idiot and like played it a lot. So
Oh,
some of the autographs are a little faded. It's still they're still all mostly there and you can see them, but like that was kind of
yeah.
stupid on my part. But you live and you learn. So I love that one. Um, Probably have some other things too, but that's definitely the first one that comes to mind. So
I have
yeah.
one of the original Woodstock posters hanging up. You know how I
That's
found
very.
that? I found we
I just
bought. I mean, fresh out of high school, I bought a storage locker, and it was full of just all these old vinyl records, and it had this rolled
that's
up
awesome.
in like a
Wow.
tube, and it was crazy. Like I got it graded and all that. So I mean, it's amazing.
Wow. Okay, so you got it like authenticated and everything.
Yeah. So like it was
That's
crazy.
awesome.
I was like, there's no way. And then I'm like, there's no way of selling that. So I'm like, I gotta put it up somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, I have a lot of, like I said, I was a big comic book guy, so I have a pretty like sizable collection back in the other room too, and I have some like older ones that I'm pretty proud of. My grandpa wrote a couple back in the day, so a couple of his that he wrote, and um, yeah, I got stuff like that too. I wish I had some cool vintage guitars. I don't have
Yeah.
anything that's vintage or crazy expensive yet. I definitely hope to someday. And every time I go to like the guitar stores here in Nashville, they have the craziest old school stuff, and it's just like someday I want one of those.
I
But
am
all in good
also
time.
a big superhero fan as well. Big superhero nerd for the movies, not really the comic books. So I want to know from someone that read comic books as a kid, has a collection. In your
Mhm.
mind, what is the best superhero slash comic book adaptation of a movie that's been released?
Yeah, adaptation is the key. Because I gotta say, I mean, I'm honestly more of a DC guy than a Marvel guy. Like I love
Okay.
Marvel, but I have a lot more DC comics and read a lot more. Like big Superman fan,
Right.
Batman, Green Lantern, all that stuff. Unfortunately, as we know, most of the adaptations have not been great. I mean, I actually think Henry Cavill is an awesome Superman, and the
He
first Man
just
of Steel was.
he got fed a lot of bad scripts. He's a great superhero, but the point is it was just bad scripts, bad writing.
Yeah, the movies around him were not what they should have been. I honestly thought Man of Steel was better than other people
I
thought,
agree. No, I
but
agree.
but otherwise the rest of it was kind of like downhill for sure. And Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot's a great Wonder Woman, but the Batman choices of late have been very weird in my opinion. I saw the new one with Robert Pattinson,
Mhm.
and it was okay, but to be honest, I love Batman. I have a lot of Batman books, but I'm a little sick of new Batman movies with different Batman because like
Yeah.
DC has so many more characters to explore. Get off of Batman. Like this is why DC's not as successful as Marvel. So I'd have to say probably my favorite adaptation is probably it might be Captain America.
Yeah.
It's either Captain America or Iron Man because I just think there's such a.
That first Iron Man though, man, when it come out in 08, I think when it come out, dude,
Yeah,
it was killer because it
it
was
just
like
changed.
it's amazing.
Yeah, it just changed everything, man, and it just showed. It really truly brought it to life. Like I truly believe that. It's funny because I think a lot of people forget Chris Evans, the guy who played Captain America, was like played Johnny Storm in like those old Fantastic Four
Yeah.
movies from like yeah, which is fun. And there's been a number of those actors that played that have kind of double dipped in these universes. Like, wait, you were this guy, now you're this guy. You can't be both, kind of thing. Or
See,
like,
that's where I
but
stand with if you have ever played a superhero successfully or failed, you should not no longer be allowed to play in any superhero movie, a villain, superhero, anything, because it confuses people. Like,
yeah,
it,
you are that. You are that. So, but I loved. I mean, man, I also really think that the new Spider-Man, all of the different Spider-Man have been great and kind of like different versions of Peter Parker. But to me, like the Tom Holland Spider-Man is the most.
right,
Um,
right.
well, actually, you know what? I love the Tom Holland one. To me, like the most accurate and the best adaptation in my mind is actually the Andrew Garfield one. I
I
take that back.
agree because what I still say Tobey Maguire is the best just because that's what I grew up on. I went and saw all the movies in
Yeah,
the
we grew
theaters
up.
as a
Yeah,
kid. But when you actually look at the data, the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man was actually using the comic book type of comedic that Spider-Man was.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
The
Like,
personality a lot more
right,
faithfully. Like it. He still dealt with serious shit and was always having a
right,
life crisis, one life crisis after another, kind of like Toby Maguire. But he had the humor, and the wit,
Right.
and of course, and in that same vein, how could I forget Deadpool? Deadpool's adaptation, amazing, legendary. Ryan Reynolds was born to play Deadpool, perfect. Like that's probably actually number one if I had to say anything. But Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is up there because to me he's the most accurate from the comics. Like that had serious shit and drama and heroism, but there is a humor there. So and I think Tom Holland has the humor piece too, but he's like the high schooler. To me, I always imagine Peter Parker as like mid to late 20s, trying to figure out his life, like on the verge of success as, personally, professionally as Spider-Man and with, Gwen or Mary Jane or whoever, but dealing with a lot of crises. And then but he has that humor. So to me, Andrew is like the most comic book and comic, obviously, of all of them. And then, but Deadpool, yeah, no, Deadpool's got to be. He just is Deadpool. I mean,
But
Hugh
here's
Jackman is Wolverine, did you see the new Doctor Strange?
not yet, man. And I'll tell you why. I will tell you why. Marvel, after the last Avengers, right? After the
Mm-hmm.
last Avengers, they got rid of everybody, the older people. To me, Marvel has just become this big pile of boring. There's really no characters that I care to see anymore. I wouldn't see the Doctor Strange if it didn't have anything to do with what happened after the Spider-Man. Like now you kind of have to watch it. So they got Thor coming out, Guardians of the Galaxy, sure.
Yeah.
But I just find that once they got rid of the original Avengers, there's really no standstill giant superheroes that are going to capture my mind to go back and watch.
I think there will be. I think they're kind of just trying to make sure to not overload people and make them tired of it.
I'm hoping.
But I hear what you're saying. I do. Which is why, again, I thought DC had an amazing opportunity. They were trying too hard to like be like Marvel and catch up. Like the Justice League, the Dawn of Justice movie with Batman, Superman. It's like they're fitting like 4 things in one, like 6 things in one to try and catch up. And like, oh, it was a Justice League movie already. The great thing about Marvel is it was this gradual build, and then like the post-credit scenes where it's like, oh, they're hinting at this guy and that guy, and it's all coming together. So when the actual Avengers came together, it was amazing.
I find this the best thing about Marvel versus what DC should do. There's 3 different Spider-Mans, right? Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland. What they did was to counter react and say, oh, we've had 3 people play Spider-Man. Boom, they bring in a multiverse. Makes sense why there's 3 in different years. They could, if DC could figure out a way to do that with like Batman or Superman, I think it could counter react the way DC's heading.
Good. I think also, and DC's never had the autonomy in a studio the way Marvel has with Kevin Feige. Like, sure, Jeff Johns and some people from DC Comics have worked on DC films, but from what I hear, it's always like been the studio heads and the non-creatives have kind of like been running the ship, and that's not the way you want to do it. So, like Suicide Squad's a great example. Like they made 2 movies, and both of them, like one was better than the other, but they still weren't that great. And they were hoping that was going to be like their Guardians of the Galaxy,
Dude, did you see Peacemaker? Did you ever get a chance to watch that?
I need to get, that's one of the shows. Thanks for reminding me. I watched like the first 2 episodes. Then I like got,
I'm going to tell you something, man. It's fantastic.
I like it.
It is.
I like it.
It's one of the, and surprisingly, I'll tell you, it's one of the shows that had me going, damn, I can't wait till Friday. And then when Friday happened, it was like, okay, I'm done with my stuff. I got to watch it. Like it's one of those shows, surprisingly, that took over.
100%. Yeah, no, I've heard, I really liked what I watched. Long day yesterday. I got to finish it. It's great. So I do like that. And John Cena's hilarious. He's one of those guys. He kind of reminds me of Mark Wahlberg. Like they kind of look similar too. Both former like.
As in that they're not great actors, but they try really hard. It makes them good because they try really hard.
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't think they're terrible actors, but also their ability to do humor and serious stuff.
That's true.
However, like they have some nice versatility, however, they might not be the best actors ever, but for the kinds of movies they're doing and kinds of characters, I think they have some nice versatility there. Obviously, very physical too.
Did you see that
Um,
Dwayne Johnson finally got his superhero movie? Because
yeah, Black
I
Adam.
I
Yeah,
love I love Dwayne Johnson, but for me, he was trying to be a superhero too much in movies. Like it was almost always too much The
that's just like
Rock.
what he is. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And then he finally got it, and
That's
I'm
always
like, okay, now you have to
that's
stop in
always
movies.
so to me that's always a problem with super famous art like actors who are already super famous
Yeah,
playing superheroes. Like that's why the Ben Affleck playing Batman thing is weird because like I don't see Batman, I just see Ben Affleck. I don't see
right.
Robert Pattinson. I kind of was a little. It was a little bit more believable as like just Bruce Wayne, but like not really. Really, it was Christian Bale, and obviously, like I've seen the older Batmans too, like
Mhm.
with Michael Keaton, and Michael Keaton definitely was a good Batman. But the thing about Christian Bale is he was like not unknown, but like he wasn't a megastar in the same way that he. I mean, he just was Bruce Wayne to me, and Batman. And the same thing with Henry Cavill. He was so unknown, like he just was Superman. Like now, and same with Christopher Reeve. He was. So I think sometimes when you have someone that's already like super famous, it's kind of hard to cast them as a superhero because the superhero identity needs to take precedence over their
Right.
fame as an actor. Like but at the same time, I mean, it worked with Robert Downey Jr. Like he became Iron Man. Like, but I and Ryan Reynolds, he was already a Green Lantern for God's sake, but he worked as Deadpool. So I can't say that that's always the case. I just think as a general rule of thumb, I guess Thor, the actor, wasn't super famous.
No.
Chris Hemsworth wasn't maybe as famous before. Chris Evans, Captain America. I don't know. I mean, what's funny is a lot of people don't remember he was in The Perfect Score, which is one of like my favorite movies with Scarlett Johansson. They were like the original Avengers team stealing the scores to the answers to the SAT.
Okay.
And
I've never seen that, I don't think.
oh man, you got to see it. It's a classic like teen movie. It's so great. So I don't really remember how famous Chris Evans was before Captain America, but to me he just is Captain America. He is, and same thing. Like I didn't really see certainly Ed Norton and somewhat Mark Ruffalo. It was kind of hard to see them as the Hulk. Mark a little bit more, but I just kind of saw them as like them. Eric Bana was a bit better of a Hulk.
Yeah,
I just maybe it's just I just
I found the newer Marvel's cast of the Hulk. I kind of found that a little flawed. It didn't go for me. Like I think, and I'm kind of glad that Mark Ruffalo did not get a standalone Hulk movie because I don't think it'll work. I mean, I definitely see it, but I don't. I don't buy Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk. I think he's a little too goofy. Like for it, like
I think he's good. He's definitely good, and he works well with the other actors in the Avengers movies. But he wouldn't have necessarily been my pick
right.
for a standalone. Yeah, but I don't know who it would have been either. So, gosh, I'm sorry, I'm yawning so much. I drove like 10 hours yesterday back, and then was up late, like just getting everything settled back in. I kind of can't. I'm that kind of person that can't settle until my stuff is settled, like unpacked
Me
and
too.
everything.
Like if there is dishes in the sink, I can't go to
Yeah,
sleep knowing that the kitchen's dirty. I can't do that.
yeah, it's
So,
hard for me to do that too.
but
So,
man, look, I'm gonna go ahead, give you the floor. Go ahead and put out all your information, what you want to promote, things like that. Take all the time you need, and we'll get you off here.
oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And again, thank you so much for having me. This has been a ton of fun. And if you're ever in Nashville, let me know. And if I'm ever down near Biloxi, hopefully, playing some shows, I'll let you know as well. But yeah, my name's Dan Harrison. I'm on all the socials at Dan Harrison Music. I'm also, and I have some solo stuff out. I'm also in a duo called Salem Town. Um, and we're on socials at I Love Salem Town, kind of like the I Love New York thing, but Salem Town's one word with no E on the end. And been putting out a lot of new music with them. We're going to be on the road pretty soon, and got some new music coming out, and super excited about it. And got a lot of fun things in the works and music with other artists. And um, so yeah, if you guys anyone wants to check it out, just go to wherever you stream music or on Instagram. So
Cool, Dan. Look, man, I appreciate it very much you doing this, and glad we finally got our schedules aligned and we were able to do it.
Me too, man. I really appreciate it, and love to come back anytime.
Absolutely, dude. All right, dude. Have a good one, man. I'll let you go.
You too.
All
Take
right,
care.
peace. Bye.